Hey, what's up everybody? Well, here I am making the first talking video that I've made in a while. And that's likely to become more of the norm. And basically what I want to talk about is a couple of things. I want to unbox a few things. And what I really wish is that I could get a microphone instead of having to hope that something is audible that I'm saying, and there's always subtitles. You can always try to figure out what I'm saying that way. But I have a lot to talk about. Really, I could make a multi-hour, multi-part video, but I don't want to do that. What I like to talk about today is a number of things. First of all, life isn't treating me that well, though I guess it's better than 28 years ago. I have, it's just not, I mean, I'm not sick, I'm not sick, that's a good thing. And if I could only get through the next 7 weeks or so without any colds, I'll be able to say that I've had 0 colds at age 41, because I think it's been 15 months since I truly had a clinical cold in February. Knock on wood. And what I want to talk about, start out with saying, though it's kind of embarrassing, part of why I wasn't in more of a hurry to really make a video when when I left my mom's house, because wouldn't you know how I've talked about how when May begins on a Thursday, it's a historically bad thing, and I can never forget Friday, May 2nd, 1997, just because of that cold, and how it's almost like the more people try to change something in my mind, the more likely I am to remember it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like when someone challenges you on something and you are forced to prove it with insurmountable evidence, you're more likely to remember it, aren't you? I mean, if you never had to prove, whatever your point is, if you just were never called on it, nobody ever, and that's what people don't understand. When they make these outlandish arguments that don't make any sense whatsoever. They don't make one hill of beans worth of sense when you know the truth as well as I do. When people make these outlandish arguments, they do not understand that they are further solidifying it in my mind. Because when you are forced to look something up and double check your math and, look over everything that you know, supporting what you believe, and you find even more evidence and more evidence and more evidence, well, guess what? That's like just studying all day for a test instead of for 1 hour. So you are much more likely to remember something that becomes controversial or significant for some reason than if it could have just been another memory, no more important than any other. I don't think I would have ever forgotten, my belief that Angelica messed herself in Y at least 1 or 2 times. But had it never been controversial, I'd have found it much easier to move on sooner than this. And just like that cold in 97, if it hadn't have been, if my mom hadn't tried to tell me in June that I didn't have a cold, and just like September of 2002 and October of 2004, if she wouldn't have tried to say that it was, quote, sinusitis, and that because people can have allergies at that time of year, that it wasn't a cold, when I damn well know it was. if she hadn't created that negative memory in my head about that cold, in addition to how negative it had already been for other reasons, the humiliation factor of going to school sick, see, that's the worst part, and hoarse and nasally and all that, after telling everyone that I was a space alien who couldn't get sick. In addition to all that, someone trying to tell me that it may never have happened, and the anger I felt about that, those kinds of things, that just solidifies it even further. It's like, not only do you have the memory of what happened, you have on top of that the insult to injury that came later. When someone tried to tell you, oh, that didn't happen, you're just remembering it wrong. That didn't happen. It's like if I went to somebody's house and I saw a big dead cockroach and I said, ew, you have cockroaches. Ugh. And they said, no, I don't. See this bag of ladybugs? I collect ladybugs. That's a ladybug. Well, it makes no sense. Because now it's like, it's even worse. You not only have roaches, you collect bugs and think nothing of it. So, anyway, what I want to talk about, how it was kind of a bad experience on Friday, May 2nd. Because, how I love to brag about my health, and, that's another thing. It's almost like, sometimes I feel like I am an antagonist in somebody's story. I feel like I'm a freaking purple-clad villain in someone else's story sometimes, or maybe even in God's story of my life. I don't even know. Because I feel like sometimes I can brag too much and brag too much and brag too much and get too arrogant about things. And God will sometimes slap me, and I can clearly feel it. I clearly feel it. People, I don't care who tries to say there is no God, I happen to know. Because God talks to me in ways that I cannot explain or describe. And I'd like to talk more about going to church on Easter. But had I not gone with my mom, I'd had no chance of doing that. So, God talks to me in ways that I cannot explain. Right up to the moment where this awful thing, there's always something awful when Cinco de Mayo happens to be a Monday, because May begins on a Thursday. But, in 97, of course, it was the cold. In 2003, it was me trying to end it. And just like in 2003, Easter was you-know-whose birthday, which my parents want to slap me for saying that, so I don't mention it to them. And I did have a cake on that day, and I was laughing because of what I fantasized about drawing a hate symbol on the cake, but I didn't. Just Easter eggs and bunnies. But if I'd have been 12 years old, I'd have been tempted to do that. So Easter being April 20th, in 2003, come to think of it, it's also the kind of year when April 20th is a Sunday, whether or not it's Easter. Because in 97, April 20th was a Sunday. That was 3 weeks after Easter because of the moon. And 2003, April 20th was Easter, and I remember commenting on that. And, in 2000 and was it 14? So you go odd, odd, even with any specific day pattern. And so in 2014, oh my gosh, there was another April 20th that was Easter. 2008, I'm not sure which Sunday was Easter, but April 20th was also a Sunday, though it may not have been Easter. So April 20th being a Sunday, and Cinco de Mayo being a Monday, Friday the 13th, right before my birthday, it always spells bad news. And, so, it's just what happened on this Friday, May 2nd. Well, I wanted to leave May 1st, but we couldn't get that together and come back to my dad's. Well, you know how I like to brag not only on how seldomly I get colds, but also, as you well know, I like to brag on how seldomly I vomit or throw up. And, you know, I mean, that's another thing that, you know, I've teased people about all my life. You know, the biggest thing I tease people about is, of course, you know, the brown unthinkable, which thankfully never happens to me because I don't fart in my clothes. And I also like to tease people about vomiting or, you know, and of course colds, you know, to a lesser extent, in that order. So, hardly ever vomit. You know, when I was a kid, like under 15, I did it at least once a year, every single year, without exception. Though I was lying to my classmates and saying, like, I've never vomited in my whole life. You know, just like the colds thing. Just to freak them out mostly. Then, when I was like 15 through 29, I did it on average about every other year, every couple years. And then when I was like 30 on up, I think I may have only vomited twice in my 30s. And it may have actually been the same age 32, when I was having all those health issues and I had no appetite. And, you know, I would eat junk food sometimes to fill the void left by me not wanting to eat regular food because I wasn't hungry, and that would make me sick sometimes. So I would eat the worst possible thing. And so, you know, I think I may have vomited twice. You know, didn't at all the 2.5 years I lived in that new house with my mom, or it's not new. And then I lived with my dad in that apartment for 7 or 8 years. We were kind of in limbo for a while between this house. And so I may have vomited twice. You know, once in the parking lot there, talk about age 32. I think I may have been a year later, I may have been 33, or may have still been 32, I'm not sure. But I just ate too much at this all-you-can-eat restaurant. But I think I went almost a decade. I think that may have been like 2015, 16-ish. So about 9 years. Certainly hadn't thrown up like involuntarily, uncontrollably, multiple times. You know, wouldn't stop until my stomach was empty. Never like that. For at least the better part of a decade. And, you know, it's hard to remember. I don't know, unless I got choked on phlegm one day. But I don't think so. I think I got through COVID without ever throwing up at age like 37, was I? Yeah, something like that. Pretty sad. I can't even remember the year, but in 97, I remember the exact date, Friday, May 2nd, that will live in infamy. And so will this past Friday, May 2nd. Well, as of Thursday, May 1st, I had bragged to someone, literally, a Christian lady, which should tell you something about how I hardly ever throw up, and I think it's been about a decade. And it was the weirdest thing. It was like, I wasn't sick. I don't think I have any kind of stomach virus or anything like that. Don't have COVID or any respiratory virus. But I was like, so this cat I had even been like mad at the cat and how gross she is, because she's always throwing up hairballs 2 days in a row. The May 1st, May 2nd, maybe like late April, you know, on and off. But just still right up almost to the moment where this happened, I was like still, I don't know how to describe it, like laughing about videos of people throwing up because they do the milk challenge, laughing about cartoon characters vomiting on my favorite puke scene compilation. But what happened that was really, you know, kind of out of the ordinary. Okay, first of all, I have a lot of freaking anxiety on the day, especially when I leave my mom's house. To a lesser extent, the day I leave my dad's house and go to my mom. But going from her house to this one is very nerve-wracking, emotional, you know, very painful, because it's like she cries and it's hard for me not to cry, and it's just very sad. And knowing that I can't be with her for Mother's Day, once again, you know, it's hard on me. And, you know, just it's just very, very bad the day that I leave my mom's house. It's bad enough to leave this house and go to hers, but it's worse to leave hers and come here. It's just so nerve-wracking. And in addition to all this, she makes ridiculous demands on me that I can't even explain or describe. Like, nobody would take that off of their mom at my age. You know, just the demands, I just can't even begin to explain. But they can be very hard on me, you know, like just I don't know, downloading pictures from her camera, making sure, this is done, that is done, this is done, that is done. Just these technological things that she can't really do. Over here, at least, it's just cooking and, cleaning up behind him, which he doesn't even really ask me to do. I just do it. But the thought of not being able to get all that done in time and not packing all my things, it's just very nerve-wracking. And, as bad as the divorce was, they're not amicable in the slightest. And so the thought of what will happen, when they see each other, because she just doesn't like for me to drive. She treats me like a child that can't drive, which is ridiculous. And now that my dad's vision is going downhill, I have to fear for my life all the way home because he's no longer the greatest driver in the world. And just everything just comes crashing down on me that day that I leave my mom's house. Okay, so just like in Sophia the First, it's almost like God. It feels like God wanted to give me a dose of what they were feeling in all these movies where I like to laugh at the character, or these cartoons where I like to laugh at the characters for vomiting and laugh at people for failing the milk challenge and laugh at people just for being sick. And right up until hours before this happened, I was, still laughing and laughing, about all this crap that I always laugh about. And so what ends up happening is, so the thing about my mom, the other thing that I never tell her to her face is annoying. I feel like I'm being overfed both places, but with my mom, it's like I don't have the heart to tell her. At least with my dad, if I feel like I'm being overfed, I can, decide to give him the bigger portion like I always do. If I cut a steak like 60-40, I give him the 60 and take the 40. And everything else is like that. He gets the bigger potato. He gets the bigger this, that, and the other. Well, with my mom, the thing about her is that while I do feel, like I'm full about halfway through my meal, it's a lot harder to tell her that. With my dad, if I feel like I'm too full or whatever, I'll just put it away in the refrigerator, and he doesn't care. He doesn't police that. I can fix it later, or he can eat it for lunch, and it's not a big deal. I don't have to clean my plate, so to speak, over here. I have more freedom in that way too. Well, at my mom's house, I feel like, oh my gosh, sometimes every meal can be a try not to throw up challenge. It can feel like the freaking milk challenge that these guys fail and make me laugh. Every meal can feel like that sometimes, especially when I have that much anxiety. It's like I'm really not all that hungry. But yet, how do you tell your mom, that this beautiful plate of food is just a little too much? You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm sure she wouldn't be mad at me, but it might hurt her feelings. And that's just not what I really want to do, as it's not the way I want to end my visit, yelling at her about how she freaking cooks for an army and that I'm not a greedy, hungry family of 4. I'm one person that needs to lose weight. So, how do I tell her? It's just too much food. Well, so I ate all this food and I was able to force it down, wash it down, and I thought, great, successfully passed the challenge, cleaned my plate, didn't enjoy those last few bites. But all night long, oh my gosh, here I was, still laughing at Cedric, laughing at Lars, laughing at Angelica, laughing at even his little niece Callista, laughing at Sophia, because she probably did it along with Cedric, laughing at, all those other characters, on Rocket Power, laughing at Timmy on Odd Parents, laughing at all the other Rugrats that threw up, laughing at all these people that failed the milk challenge, laughing at anyone I can think of that ever threw up. And I'd even told someone that I hardly ever vomit, and I'm so freaking healthy, and I want to maintain my health, and thinking about how I'm so glad that I've never been pregnant, never can get pregnant, because I don't know if I'd ever vomited since I had the hysterectomy. Oh my gosh, is it 9 years ago? Holy crap. So, my little sister is now the age that I was then. So here I am, still feeling high and mighty about, not vomiting for so long. So all night long, at least 12 hours, I'm having these burps that are just not going away. Like I thought, surely, I'm just belching the food and it'll go away. It'll go down, and I might have diarrhea, but, as long as I don't mess myself, which I never do, I'll be okay. And so that's what I thought. As long as I just don't fart in my clothing, like I never fart in my clothing, I'll be fine. Well, the next day rolls around, and I'm, just thinking about how, it would be terrible for me to try to emulate what Cedric did in Sophia the First, Curse of Princess Ivy, and actually get in a pickup truck and, kneel over, lean down like that with my head pointed toward the tailgate, and how I would definitely throw up if I had a bucket under my face, and I did that. And I wanted to, simulate what he did. Well, these burps were not going away. They were getting stronger and more disgusting. They literally tasted like it, with an SH in front. So, noon rolls around, and I'm still not feeling any better. Still feeling anxiety. May have gotten 1 or 2 hours of sleep, like a nap. Couldn't sleep, just feeling awful. But I still needed to pack up my stuff and come over here. So, I'm in the middle of folding towels. I think the cat had just thrown up a hairball. And so that added the disgust. There was anxiety. There was sickness from the food. Not motion sickness, I guess, from, exerting myself, folding the towels and all that, and getting my clothes put in the suitcase, rushing around. So I guess that could be motion sickness. I don't know. So, disgust about the cat throwing up a hairball not long before that. And, oh my gosh, it's like I'm in the middle of folding towels, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is not going away. This feeling is not going away. And I said, I gotta get over a sink or a toilet or something, or I'm gonna throw up all over these towels that I'm folding, and we can't have that. So I get in the bathroom, and I just get over the sink, because I'm not about to try to kneel on the floor, fully clothed. I mean, the only thing worse than vomiting is having it go down the southbound exit simultaneously, by bending your GI tract in half. So I lean over the sink, and oh my gosh, it's like I start belching. It's like, oh my gosh, this SH is coming up. Oh my gosh. And it's like, I just started throwing up, for the first time in nearly a decade. And it's like, it kind of freaked me out, because, it's really painful and disgusting. Well, I mean, it's everything I fantasize about it being for other people, like antagonists in movies and such. But it's just very painful, disgusting, frightening, and it just felt like I was getting my comeuppance, so to speak, for all these months I've spent laughing and making songs, just making light of a subject matter like that. And I feel like at that moment, it's like I felt like I was some kind of a villain. I just looked in the mirror, and I thought, perhaps I'm the villain in someone's story, like my cat. And I was just throwing up, and I just couldn't stop doing it. I would throw up and think I was finished, and then I have to do it again and again and again. And I don't think I was dry heaving, but it's like it got to the point where it's like, oh my gosh, my body is just going to throw up until I don't have anything left in my stomach. Then I also had diarrhea, but not severely. But I didn't mess myself, of course. No, I would never do that. But, so that maintains just a shred of dignity. But it just really hit me hard, because it's Friday, May 2nd, making the date impossible to forget, because 1,461 weeks ago, I was absent from the 7th grade. And Friday, May 2nd, the day I kind of dreaded for so long, because 28 years is divisible by 7 in days. So, that sort of burns it into my memory, unless and until I get dementia. And I was just freaking out, and part of me wanted to call 911, but then a part of me didn't want the additional embarrassment. And it was embarrassing that my mom had to know about this. she had to know about this, and I was like, Mom, I think I'm sick. Oh my God. And she wasn't really mad, but she was mad at me about like not doing it in the toilet of all things. So just like when I was a kid, she would yell at me because I never wanted to lean over the toilet. I just, can't, because I'm so afraid that, I'll get in that position and then I'll have to strain so hard to get out of it that guess what could happen? Oh my gosh. And luckily that didn't. But I'm so deathly afraid of leaning over a toilet because I'm afraid of, messing myself getting out of that position. And no, that's never happened. Because you have to exert a lot of force when you feel weak like that to get up off the floor. And that could force something out the other end. That's what I'm just terrified of. And so, I was just thinking about how, my identity as a potty trained adult is just contingent on me never having a drop of it in my pants. And so it's been way too long talking about that. Will not get to unbox. But so yeah, my no vomiting streak for almost a decade ended before it made a decade. Oh my gosh, and that's so freaking embarrassing to have to report. Friday, May 2nd, 2025. So yeah, it's just a combination of anxiety, eating against my will the night before. So that's sickness, disgust over the cat having vomited not long beforehand. The motion of, trying to rush around and get things packed up. It's like playing sports. And it's just so freaking embarrassing. The first time in my 40s. Maybe the first time since my early 30s, age 32 or 3 or something. I don't really know. But it's like 9/11. It's like I can't forget. It's like, oh my God. Me vomiting is not something I take lightly. And so I'll go ahead and end this video with some pictures that I made. AI is just so freaking amazing. I was able to make diagrams of the human GI tract. And of all these characters, well, they're not all the characters, but some of them are the characters, and it just makes me feel so much better to look at this, to look at it. All these characters that people have on a pedestal, like they would never throw up or they would never poop their pants. Well, it's just ridiculous because, to me, they're just like any other human. They have a GI tract and they can do all those things. So I'll go ahead and post this video.